The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision the Fire Store makes as a company is about its customers. As the holiday season has quickly approached, explore a wide selection of unique and practical gifts at the Fire Store's Gift Center. Find the perfect presents for firefighters, EMTs, and first responders today. The Fire Store's goal is to get you the gear you need when you need it at prices you can afford. Visit thefirestore.com for everything but the truck and shop its family of brands including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagneGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit MagneGrip.com.
Good evening. Welcome to the December issue of Fireground Strategies and Other Stuff from the Street on Fire and Engineering Blog Talk Radio. I can't believe it's the end of the year. It's the last one we're doing this year. It flew by. All the days are flying by for me now since I'm retired. I'm just out 5 years. You're almost 10, right, Chief?
I'm almost 9.
Almost 9. Okay. But anyway, I'm thinking of the holidays, and I'm a Christian, so I celebrate Christmas. I think Christmas time of year is a great thing, but there are many, many other faiths and groups that celebrate different things. So to our listeners, whatever you celebrate, I hope you have a safe and joyful one, whether you're celebrating Hanukkah, which today is the last day. Enjoy it and enjoy your family. Spread some cheer, spread some love. On a sad note, today is the 11th anniversary of the Sandy Hook shooting here in Connecticut. And that's a pretty big deal. I don't want to discuss, any gun control or any of that stuff, but what I want to discuss, some of these shootings, a lot of these shootings that are happening is because we treat each other badly. We're mean, we're angry, we're divisive. We're right, we're left, we're Christian, we're Muslim, we're Jewish. It's just this hate that shouldn't be there. Let's just try to be, as firefighters, we should try to just reach out and be kind to each other and take care of each other. It's a sad day here in Connecticut. When that happened, I was at the Connecticut Fire Academy taking a class. I don't even remember who was speaking. That's how overwhelming it was as part of the seminar series. But there was a volunteer from the Sandy Hook Fire Department there. He stood up, turned white, and just quickly said, we have a shooting in one of our schools, and he left the classroom. And, it was a pretty dramatic event, and I think this is happening too much in our country. So, be aware of how you treat people. People are suffering. People are afraid just like you. But I am grateful to live in this great country because nobody's dropping bombs on us, and we're pretty good. But anyway, that was just a short little thing because I woke up this morning. The first thing I saw in the news was, it's the 11th anniversary of Sandy Hook. So of course I feel that here, it's not far from me. So, but again, in the spirit of the holidays, enjoy your families, love your families, and, give them a hug. You never know what's going to happen today, and they may not come home. And Chief, I know you've always been close to your daughters. You take care of them, you see them, you make sure they're all right. And that's so important. As firefighters, when we go to work, remember, tell your kids you love them, tell your wife you love them, or your husband, whatever it is, or they are. It's important because it may be a day that you might not make it home. So just think of that. So Chief, from here where I'd like to go with you, because you had a major incident where you used to work in North Hudson, and I'd like you to you know a lot more about it than I do. I've looked at your videos and your article you're starting to work on. I think it's great. And there was some outstanding rescue efforts by some people who by all means should have been unable to make that grab. So could you go over it a little bit, like beginning with what started, what kind of buildings it was in, and move through the whole thing?
Yeah. And if you got any kind of asides or inquiries, I'm missing something, just let me know. Yeah, it was on Thanksgiving. They're calling it the Thanksgiving miracle, and to be quite honest, somebody was looking out for us, man. There was, I believe, there was a divine intervention. Whether it was Vinny Neglio, who uh, died after a backdraft back in 2006, or Chief Flood, or any number of guys. Somebody was looking out for somebody, man. Um, I did a short sort of synopsis of it for my column in the FMBA, which is the union paper in New Jersey, and I'm planning on, and if they want me to, which it seems like maybe they will, because I have more of a direct sort of relationship with fire engineering. I'm going to be looking to do an article with the incident commander, whose name is Anthony Venezia. Good deputy, good Fireground commander, a lot of experience. It was my old shift, actually, and it was nighttime on Thanksgiving. I'm going to say probably, well, it was dark out, so I'm not even sure what time the fire came in. That information I will get, but it was early evening. It had to be like 7, 8 o'clock, something like that. Maybe even earlier, maybe 6. The fire building was in West New York, which is one of the towns we cover, on Bergen Line Avenue, which is the most congested street in the most congested city in America. It was on the corner of 53rd Street and Bergen Line Avenue. We get a lot of work on Bergen Line Avenue. Vinny Neglio was killed in a backdraft on Bergen Line Avenue. We had another backdraft on 32nd Street in Davis's Toy Store on Bergen Line Avenue some years ago, probably around 2001, 2002. And this one on 53rd in Bergen Line was another backdraft and a smoke explosion, is what they're surmising. At first, people were thinking gas, but there is no evidence that there was any gas there. I mean, they're still investigating, so I could be wrong on that. Anything that comes out, before the article comes out, certainly pass people's way. The fire appeared to have started on the second floor of a 3-story ordinary mixed use, which some people call a taxpayer, 3-story apartments up above, probably 20 by 80. When they pulled on the scene, the Bergen Line Avenue side is where the stores are. The residential side is on the 53rd Street side. It was a corner building, and they pulled up to heavy fire venting out of a second floor window on the 53rd Street side above the stores. The store was a pharmacy. It wasn't involved, I don't believe. On the 53rd Street side, there was really, really evil looking smoke, and there were people at the windows on the 3rd floor. So the first 2 engines that got there, the ladder wasn't there yet. It was probably only about a minute out, but they decided that we have to get these people out because the danger involved. So the first engine started raising ladder, and they raised to 24. The window was 26 feet, so they had to climb the ladder, get up on almost the tip of the ladder, and pull the people out of the window because the engines carry 24s, right? Once the ladder got there, they raised to 35. The second engine stretched the line into the building. The first ladder got on the scene, and again, they started raising a ladder, but they also accessed the roof. They raised ladder roof. The rescue went up above the fire. The fire building on the we're going to call the 53rd Street the Alpha side, so it would be the Delta side, would be the Bergen Line side. The Delta exposure was a 2-story ordinary store on the first floor. Looked like it was actually 2 stores on the first floor. It looked like 2 buildings, but it really wasn't. It was 2 addresses, but it wasn't. So there were shared joist pockets between the second floor of the fire building, between the second and third floor of the fire building, and the cockloft of the de-exposure. So, Anthony Venezia told me that, everything appeared to be going well when he pulled up. Lines were being stretched. So water supplies were secured. They were pulling a 2.5 ladder. Roof had been laddered. The rescues were being made. And everything seemed to be going the way it was supposed to be going. And they were up on the second floor, getting the line in and supporting the search and protecting the rescue. And without warning, there was an explosion in the de-exposure, and it blew out the front wall, and it caused the roof to lift and then drop down in a supported lean-to fashion. It's opposite of what I'm doing. It leaned towards the fire building, and there were guys on that roof, because what happened was the second due ladder, because they couldn't ladder the Bergen line side because of the venting fire, which was now auto exposing it to the third floor. They laddered the 2-story exposure, and they brought the equipment up to the roof, including a roof ladder, and they were in the process of accessing the 3-story roof. A couple of them had already gotten up there, but I believe 3 guys were still on the roof. And when the backdraft occurred, they were blown up in the air. There's a picture, and I'm sure it will be in the article, of a guy that I thought was standing on the 3-story roof, and it turns out he wasn't. He was in the air, and that firefighter landed on the roof. He broke an ankle, broke a foot. I believe he damaged his knee and his hip and his shoulder, and he also had broken ribs. And he landed back on the roof. Another firefighter was not quite injured quite as badly. He also landed on the roof, but they were up on the sort of the upper side of the roof, the upper side of the lean-to. The captain, who went up in the air, landed flat on the roof, and the guys on the 3-story roof said they saw him, thought he was dead. After he landed on the roof, he started sliding down towards the fire. But he had blown his knee in backwards, and he had no ability to do anything for himself. So the firefighter who was severely injured with the broken foot, broken ankle, etc., and the other firefighter who was also pretty injured, they dragged him, and he was about, I'm going to say, got to be at least 270 in gear at the minimum. They dragged him from that lean-to all the way up to the D1 roof with the injuries that they had. So while that was going on, almost maybe 10 seconds after the smoke explosion, which in fact, and I'm kind of a little bit all over the place, the roof of the 2-story, which blew up and blew down, that was a result of what appeared to be a smoke explosion. It appeared that the heated gases and above their ignition temperature, I imagine, the heated gases permeated through the joist spaces into the cockloft of the de-exposure. And I guess at some point they ripened, and that's when the explosion occurred. So all the things that were going on that de-exposure roof, while that was happening, about 10 seconds or so after the original explosion between the floors, there was a backdraft in the 3rd floor cockloft of the fire building. It dropped the ceiling. The 3rd floor became, well involved. The guys in the rescue on the 3rd floor had to bail out on ladders. The guys on the roof said that they thought the building was collapsing. The roof swayed a few times and it lifted, and they just hightailed it back to the aerial. And the one captain told me when I got to the aerial, I was like, man, that was close. He was the last one on the aerial. And the aerial ladder mounts for the ladder pipe were broken, which was evidence that the roof did in fact lift, but it settled back down. It's a miracle the building didn't explode. But the mounts for the ladder, because the ladder was, sort of just above the roof line, so the roof lifted and hit it. While that was going on, the guys on the 2nd floor, one of them was a battalion chief and another one who really well was a captain. I think there were 4 or 5 guys on that 2nd floor. The force of that backdraft blew them down the stairs One guy was blown from it was like straight run stairs, I think. One guy was blown from the third middle of the stairwell all the way down to the street. These guys were also blown down to the street. And one of the company officers told me that when he got down to the street and he landed, he hurt his arm because he landed with such force. He expected to see the building collapsed, and he couldn't believe that it didn't collapse on him. But when he looked up, the building was still there. So in all, they had 8 injuries. A lot of guys with some. I want to say we have a lot of vets in North Hudson, and they told me one of the guys was saying that, you know what, and he wasn't injured, I don't believe. He said, I survived 2 IEDs over in Afghanistan, and now I'm going to deal with this shit. He goes, I got roofs exploding, you know. There are some guys that are questioning whether they're going to come back because of what happened. I think they all will be back if they're able to. There's some concern that 1 or 2 of them may not be back due to the injuries, but well, we're hoping. But as I said, and I wrote in the article, I said it could have been the worst day in North Hudson Fire's 25-year history. But I think based on what happened there, the resiliency and the bravery of the guys, including some of them that were severely injured, I think it made it one of our best days, and everybody must have seen that happen before. In the almost 40 years I'm on a job, backdraft and a smoke explosion in 2 different places almost simultaneously. Some people might have seen that, but I certainly didn't. And I have to say that was my old shift, and I'm extremely proud of what they did there. I think it was way above and beyond. But they'll tell you it's just doing a job.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's more, and I'm sure I didn't cover everything, but real harrowing, real harrowing.
Let me ask you a question. Civilian injuries?
I believe they pulled 2 people out of the top floor. I think everybody else got out. It was Thanksgiving. It was around dinner time, so maybe it was before 8 o'clock.
Yep.
And some of the people they interviewed said, we were just about to sit down to dinner. And there were people who were in the exposures that felt the, they didn't even know there was a fire in a building. They felt the explosion, and people behind the building down the block felt the explosions, and came running out into the street, etc. I don't believe there were any other injuries, which was great. Thank God.
Yep.
Thank God.
Well,
right?
Peter just said that Jeffers has a bunch of pictures, and if you're from New Jersey, you know him. He's everywhere. Yeah. He's been a fire photographer probably since before you got on a job. Maybe not that far back. That was 100 years ago.
Yeah, that far back.
But he's incredible. He's at every job that he can get to, and that's pretty amazing. So
and they've been giving him a lot of opportunities. Not only this fire. The next day they had a fire in a really heavy fire condition in a commercial building. But this year has been a really interesting year in North Hudson. We had 3 simultaneous bunch of rescues. They had a floor collapse, and eventually the whole wing of a building collapsed. That went to 4 alarms. About a half hour into that fire, they had a fully involved bowstring truss building in Union City with exposures all over the place. They were lucky none of the exposures lit off. They did a great job. About a month later, and we hadn't had one of those since 2001 when we had 4 alarm fires in one night. And we were like, so to the day was this second multiple fire with the bowstring truss and everything. And, so you think, every 20 years or so, 2 months later, they get 5 stores on Bergen Line Avenue in West New York. And as that fire was sort of winding down, but all the companies were still committed, They get 4 stores in Union City on Lower Bergen Line Avenue. About 3 weeks later, they have 4 buildings going in Union City on 8th Street. And as the companies were heading down to 8th Street, and Ron Jeffers being one of them, heading down there, somebody stopped the cop car in front of him and said, "There's a fire over here." There were 3 buildings going in Weehawken.
I remember that incident. You invited every county. You had North Hudson there. You had all the surrounding counties were in North Hudson for that.
Jersey City, Hoboken, Union County, Essex County. So what they do now, back in 2001 in December, we didn't have these multiple mutual aid plans in place like that. And so Jersey City also had a 4-alarm fire that night. So Jersey City was unavailable. So we had departments from all over the place, including New York City. And New York City, their ladder 3, which had just been reassigned after being destroyed on 9/11, it was the first fire that ladder went to. It was in Union City. And but since then, we've had we had a fatal fire about 3 years ago in Union City. There was a fatal fire in Summit Avenue, and it was such a cold and windy night that the embers blew 3 blocks away into a steeple of a church, and that became a 3-alarm fire, a 4-alarm fire, and the church steeple collapsed. And there were smaller fires all over the place, because if you know North Hudson, there's never a fire without 2 exposure problems. So we've certainly given Ron Jeffers some great work. And to be honest with you, then the 4th edition of Fireground Strategies coming up, there's a lot of pictures from those fires and a real lot of Ron Jeffers pictures. Plus, there's a bunch of Damian Danis pictures, who is probably
don't know him.
He's the second. Oh, there's also Billy Tompkins too. There's some great fire photographers in New Jersey, and Damian Danis gave me access to his files, and I have a lot of pictures from his book. And if I might, just before I finish this little tangent, I want to throw a shout out to Timmy Oak. Timmy Oak has been, under the weather and facing some health challenges. And we just want to throw good wishes out there to Timmy and his family and the whole Chicago area fire service that, Timmy serves. So, hoping that you're doing better, brother.
Yeah, I got to agree. Everybody listening, please keep him in your prayers. A good man and fighting a hard battle. I hope all goes well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the stories you just talked about, what I want to tell people, I don't know whether people who listen to us understand, we have 3-man engines where I worked in Wallingford, but we're a suburban fire department. You are Union City, that whole area in North Hudson. It's an urban city, high-rise buildings, close together, and you run 3-man engines. And that it's difficult where I worked, and I can't even imagine in the environment that you work in, running with 3-man engines. So
sometimes 3-man ladders. You know what the secret is? Keep striking alarms, man.
Yes, and early.
Keep striking alarms.
Early.
Yep,
don't wait till you need them.
Don't wait. Don't wait. We respond with 4 engines, 2 ladders, a rescue, RIT team, which is another squad, safety officer, a battalion, a deputy. I mean, we're 30 strong on a first alarm, but because of the exposure issues that we have and that sort of thing, it's never enough. So you almost always hear, we got a working fire, strike a second alarm. It's almost no automatic.
Yeah, well,
in North Hudson,
a prime example is if you have a fire on the 5th floor of a multiple dwelling, and like you said, mixed occupancy, stores on the bottom, and apartments above. To stretch a line to the 5th floor on those buildings, you have to have a minimum of 2 engine companies working together. And I love what you do with your standpipes. The pump operator of the second due engine controls from the hookup where you would hook up to a standpipe on the floor below. And I think that's a brilliant idea. So
yeah, that's That's in the high rise. Yeah.
Yeah, and the two firefighters on that engine would assist in the stretch from there and the firefight with the initial attack line. And I love that. I think it's brilliant use of limited manpower.
Well, we used two engines to stretch the first line, and my philosophy was, and I always did it on my shift, I believe the other shifts do it as well, if it's on the third floor or above, the third engine also helps stretch the first line. So that gives us 6 guys stretching a line, because we have, one pump operator, one water supply guy, and that third engine coming in, that guy is going to be sort of involved in setting up a second water supply, because we basically will do, a ladder, 2 engines, and 2 engines. One may be a telesquirt, which we try to get a telesquirt in behind the ladder, and then the other outer engines become water supply. So we get 2 water supplies in a block. And then anything else we need for water supply, generally we use manifolds. And then the engines go out to different mains. And the manifolds you can drop any way you want.
Yep.
So necessity, man.
Yeah,
necessity.
I agree. And in today's world, all fire departments are, I won't say all, most fire departments are operating with minimum or less than minimum manpower to get jobs done. And we have to be creative. We have to continue doing much like you do. You've learned your city over the years how to make it better. And you're a relatively new department.
Yeah, 25 years.
25 years. And you're like coming right up on 25 years, aren't you?
January 11th next year, 25 years, which can't believe how fast that went.
Yeah, and when you're on Weehawken, how many members did Weehawken have at that time before the unification?
Weehawken had about 50 guys. We were the smallest department, but we had, I think we had 11-man shifts with a 9-man minimum or something. 12-man shifts with a 10-man minimum. So one guy was me. One guy was the pump operator, which left us 8 guys to begin starting to fight the fire. So we would always, automatic aid was the name of the game.
Yeah.
And back then also, they smartened up, they got it, they put any differences aside for the good of the public and really, quite honestly, the good of the firefighters.
Yeah.
More guys mean less guys getting hurt.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
And more civilians being saved, more lives being saved.
And more civilians being saved, exactly.
And it's efficient. And what you just talked about, automatic aid, I think we've learned our lesson in the fire service everywhere. Although some places they're still stubborn, they're not calling for help till they need help. But in a lot of the volunteer departments, smaller career departments, or smaller combination departments, that automatic, as soon as the word smoke showing or fire showing, dispatch is automatically putting different units on the road. I was just teaching. I still have one more class to do. I did all 4 shifts for a small career department near me. It's a district. Today, anything that's a fire, there's an engine or an engine and a truck, depending on what the call was, coming at the same time. So 2 fire departments are going at a minimum to a fire in this town that sounds like it's going to be a working fire. 20 years ago, they didn't do that. You weren't allowed to go to a call until you were dispatched. As you know, I'm originally from Long Island, the all volunteer department where over 7 million people live there. It's all volunteer departments there, but it's during the day, in some departments between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 p.m., 2 departments are going to every call at a minimum, because in a volunteer department on a Tuesday afternoon, how many members do you have? 10 o'clock.
There are a lot of, I'm sorry.
No, at 10 o'clock at night, you're getting enough from a single volunteer department, but 10 o'clock in the morning, everybody's at work. And nobody works in their own village or town or city anymore. Everybody commutes. So the automatic aid, I think, is so important. Get ahead of the curve, because as you know, being an incident commander, if you look over your shoulder and nobody's standing behind you, you're screwed, right? I know you say that all the time. If there's
Exactly.
if there's nobody behind you, we're in trouble. So if you call them now, and the more alarms, again from your book, they're farther and further away. The circle gets bigger. So when you call on the third alarm, they're coming from maybe 15 miles away. In volunteer communities, it could be 20 miles away. You know, in rural areas, it's,
Takes a long time.
oh man. And then in the districts that don't have hydrants, they got to bring their water too. You know, we're,
Yeah, takes a long time. It always seems like longer.
oh my God.
You know,
I call it,
but it does take a long time sometimes. You
oh
know.
yeah. I live in a rural area. I don't live where I work, so I live in a very rural community. They just had a water main brought in on the main street that goes through town. So I think they have like 8 hydrants now, maybe 12 hydrants. I don't know exactly, but they never had hydrants before. So where I live, I'm 4 miles, no, maybe 5 miles from the closest firehouse. And they have to bring, they have 1,000 gallons on their first engine, and then 3,000 gallon tankers come after that. And they set up the ponds in the street to supply the first engine. It's quite the operation. These guys are brilliant.
And they're good
They're
at it.
very good at it. Me, when I first moved here, I was like, whoa. You know, it's
Yeah, you know, we get a water main break or we lose water somewhere in the district, you know, anywhere in the regional, we're like, oh my God,
yeah.
what are we gonna do? You know, we bring in tankers and stuff, but you know, we don't know how to operate tankers, you know, so we set them up as task forces, and we make one of the guys from the tanker task force and completely out of town, usually way from out of county, Monmouth County, you know, places like that, Bergen County. You know, look, you're the tanker task force leader here because you know how to do it and we don't.
Yes, sir.
So we'll work together.
Absolutely.
You know, but yeah,
Give me water.
you know, it's funny because get me water. Monmouth County is doing some of the things is they're just not getting the people out. You know, so they're doing automatic aid. They're also doing, you know, daytime crews now in a lot of departments where, you know, you have, you know, maybe 2. Sometimes it's just a driver, but there are a couple now that have 2, sometimes 3 guys, you know, there all the time on, you know, until, you know, a certain time at night when they expect to get more people, or on the weekend. But some of them now are working, you know, 2 guys on duty, you know, they do 12-hour shifts, like a per diem thing. And they do it 24/7 now, you know, and yeah, it's just the right thing to do, you know. You know why? Because we talked about it's all about response times. It ain't nothing else. You know what? The people in the other towns don't give a shit. I hate the curse, but what it says on the side of the rig, you know. So if you think they care, they don't. So you know your departmental pride, which you should have. You know, sometimes it doesn't matter. It actually never matters what it says on the side of the rig, you know, for the most part. But, you know, you're doing the classes there. I'm doing classes right now for officers in Montclair, Bloomfield, and Orange, 3 departments, and they are doing automatic aid now. There's you know, they're almost looking, and it's funny because I'm looking at what they're doing now, and they're doing things that we were doing, you know, 30 years ago. They're just starting to get to that. And then you just have the South Essex Regional Fire Department, which Joey Alvarez is the chief.
I didn't know.
And it's South Essex. Yeah, it's South Essex. No, it's South Orange and Maplewood. But now what could possibly happen is you know, there's 5 other departments around that, Montclair and Orange and Bloomfield, sort of including in that. I think there's Nutley and somebody else. And, you know, while they could set up their own little regional department, now you have 2 of them, you also could wind up with 1. You know, I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but you know, I said that to these guys and I went, you know, they were telling me about their operation and everything. And I said, you know, it's not too far behind you guys. And they're like, yeah. I go, regionalization. Excuse me, you know, and, you know, listen, North Hudson proved that it works, you know, and in New Jersey anyway, you know, and so I think some of the people who are more forward thinking and they're starting to, sort of embrace the idea, because nobody's got the staffing. You got two engines and a ladder, and you got 3 guys in each. You're responding with, at a chief, you respond with 10 guys.
Yep.
What can you do with 10 guys when you got exposures and stuff?
But at the same time, there are cities, and there's 3 that I know of in Connecticut, maybe more, that have 2 or 3 departments in one city. There's one city southeast of me that there's a career department in the middle of the city, and then like what I would call the boroughs. They're not really called boroughs, but 4 other volunteer departments, and there's some, how can I say, some not the best blood, so they don't play well in the sandbox together. The city just north of me, there are 3 departments. There's one that's all volunteer. There's a small district, and then there's the downtown. So one city has 3 different departments. They work well together at incidents. The one north of me is, they do really well. They respond to each other's calls all the time. But to me, it just logically doesn't make sense. And again, it works there and it works well there. But there's a chief of one department in a district. There's the volunteer fire department that has a chief and secretaries and training officers, and then there's the downtown department. It works though, but the way I look at it, it's redundancy. And again, I didn't grow up in that world, but they make it work, and they make it work well. And so I just think there's so many different things we can do. I think working together is good, just like we talked about at the beginning of the program. Working together as people, maybe we can get through all this nonsense that's going on. I want to bring up something else that I've been thinking about that's all relatively
good. I love how you segue.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it other than this, but I've been thinking about it a lot, because in Connecticut, what's happening now, and saying it negatively, the departments are poaching from each other. They're stealing members. So I'm starting to see it around the country too. They're doing lateral hires. So if you've gone to an academy and been a career firefighter, they hire you. You can apply for the job and maybe just do a quick oral interview. You can get hired. And that was unheard of before. Like, you started in one department, you worked your 20-year plus career in one department.
Yeah.
Now they're moving around. They'll do 5 years in one department, or a lot of people, when they get higher up, they'll retire, so they're collecting their pension, and then they go get a job as a deputy chief or a training officer in another department. But what I'm seeing, it's the firefighter level. I never heard of firefighters leaving a department after 5 years, but they'll go. Also, I think a lot of it is a change in the pension programs.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting
pension, insurance,
yeah,
salary.
Well, they're getting 401ks now. So that 401k is transportable. So I have a 401k in ABC department, and that money's in there for when I'm turned 62 or whatever the rules are on 401ks. You go to another department, that money goes with you. You kind of have that in Jersey, but in Connecticut, they're city pensions or municipal pensions. They're not state pensions. So if you leave that department, you may, that pension doesn't go with you. But that's all changing with the way municipalities are going with that. And that may even be so. I understand it always happened in volunteer departments, because, okay, they grow up in a town, they become a volunteer, they get married, and they move elsewhere to have kids and raise a family. They'll join that fire department. And that always made sense to me. But I see that happening here all the time. People are just moving from one department to another. Another issue, and North Hudson never ran EMS, a true EMS. There's a shortage of paramedics. So paramedics are leaving for signing bonuses to go from one department to another. Well, you don't have to ride an ambulance if you go to this town. Where in my town, as a medic for your first 10 years, you had to not always be on the ambulance, but you had to ride the ambulance. An ambulance will do 11, 12 runs. The medics get beat up no matter where you are. We've oversold ourselves on 911. I think it's great, but my leg hurts. And they call an ambulance because they think they'll get seen faster in the hospital. And the abuse of the EMS system. So someone to leave a department that runs transport units to go to a department that only has paramedics on the engines is a big bonus for these guys.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, absolutely. But they do get beat up, man. They do get beat up, and that is that's the biggest problem. There's the fatigue, they get hurt easier, and the fact that they see a lot of things. You start to get PISD issues.
Yes.
And PTSD, all that stuff. And that's not good either.
No.
While we're overworking all these guys, sometimes we probably fail to see that they are they're not only physically being beat up, but more importantly, they're mentally and psychologically being beat up.
Yes, and I absolutely think a large part of it is, I'll call them BS calls, and I really shouldn't say that. As a leader, I should be saying all calls are important. But you go to the nonsense callers, the frequent flyers that there's really nothing wrong. And then at the same time, there's somebody in cardiac arrest a block away, and you're the last ambulance in town. And you can't help the person that truly needs you. And like you said, the PTSD issues, seeing a 7-year-old kid killed in a car accident and having to treat the person, and it does wear on you. But you save more lives on the EMS side. You help deliver babies. I mean, there's some good stuff, but it's work. And sometimes I think the fire guys, me being one of them, don't appreciate what they do because they fill both roles in most departments. They're firefighters and they are EMS. And the public doesn't recognize the value to the taxpayers having dual trained people on your force. So the start of this little rant I had, is this happening a lot in Jersey? People going from department to department, career departments?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so. The civil service system is pretty stringent. So let's say that you are in Jersey City, right? And you have friends in Trenton, and you would like to do a lateral transfer.
I'm not going to Trenton.
All right, Patterson.
Okay.
No, yeah, you can't do that. You know what you have to do? You have to take the exam and wind up high enough on the list that they're going to hire you.
Yep.
Then when they hire you, I believe your seniority does not cross over. Your seniority on the department doesn't cross over, but your seniority in the pension does.
Okay.
Your rank does not cross over.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting. And that's why we don't get that much of that in New Jersey. There are departments that are not civil service. And I want to say like Maplewood is one of them. Montclair is one of them. And I'm not sure. Maybe they do more lateral transfers between departments. I don't know. I know there are people that work sometimes for those departments that wind up taking a civil service test. And if that civil service department is either, busy or they want to be busy, and again, these departments are busy too, or the benefits are better or something like that, because the departments that are not civil service, they're still in the police and fire pension.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons there are not too many people that switch departments.
Oh,
However, there are people that go out of state to other departments. There's one guy that that was on in Camden, and I know he was a captain. He might have been a battalion, but I'm not sure. I think he was a captain in Camden. He just got on the Philadelphia Fire Department.
oh, it's across the street.
Yeah, and but he retired. He's an older dude.
Yeah.
And I know a guy from New Jersey that left his department in Jersey and went to New Haven.
Yeah, I know who he is. Riley.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of interesting, Listen, if I didn't have ties here, like which I do, my kids and everything else, I might have done something like that.
Yep, there's actually, we just got not we, because I don't work there anymore, but a guy just got hired in Wallingford maybe a couple months ago. He did 21 and a half years in Milford, Connecticut. I know you've been to Milford. He actually remembers when you came and did the class.
Mm-hmm.
And
crazy, right?
And he's going to do well. He retired, so he's collecting his pension from Milford, and now he's probably going to work, I don't know, maybe 5, 6. He's young, so maybe he could do 10 years in Wallingford. And, and that makes sense to me to do that if you have your time in and you can get hard by
Oh, you're young. Yeah.
But
you got no medical issues,
But
there's a department in New Jersey, one of these departments in Monmouth that does per diem. And you do 12-hour per diem shifts and they pay it pretty well. And they're looking for guys. And I'm like, shit, man, I'm 62, but,
Yep. There's
I don't know.
a lot of volunteer departments in Connecticut are now doing daytime per diem. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You get to keep your who you are as a volunteer fire department, but you pay 3 guys to be on an engine and run medicals and small fires during the day.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the bigger career departments here, what they're doing, they're running a test. So they're doing a civil service test, but you have to have been a career firefighter or gone through the fire academy, not just a firefighter one. You have to have been a career firefighter and or went through the Connecticut Fire Academy, the Recruit program, because that's a long program. It's a live-in program, 5 days a week. You live there, PT in the morning. So they open it only to certified firefighters. And that doesn't mean firefighter 1. It means certified firefighter. And they're just opening it only to them.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's and there are and I know career departments frown on this. There are career departments that do, here we do 24/72, and there are guys that work per diem in other departments around the state while they're off duty from their career department. The career departments don't like it because if they get hurt, now it's the career department's insurance most of the time, and the career department now has to pay overtime to replace that guy, and he got hurt somewhere else.
Yep.
I know they completely frown on being a volunteer in North Hudson for that reason.
Yep.
You get hurt out of here. We are, whether we're paying your insurance or not, we lose your services.
Yep.
Now we're short staffed and we may have to hire overtime, which costs us money.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's a tough balance.
It's a tough philosophy. It's a tough balance. Guys want to work in their hometown. They want to work in places where, they know everybody and they care, but, I get it. I understand the career departments, sort of slant on that. I get it,
Yeah, but here's the thing. And I hate to keep going back to Long Island, but the reason the volunteers on Long Island are so successful, while they're not having a recruitment and retention problem, a lot of off-duty city cops and off-duty city firefighters and off-duty EMS people, they live out east, as I'll say, and that's my home. And I understand, the department's not wanting you to do that, but you know what? I grew up here. This is where I got my interest to become a firefighter. I volunteered in my hometown, and
I give back.
But use caution. As a volunteer, if you're on probation and you're in the fire academy, don't be volunteering. Take a leave of absence or something. You get hurt on probation, see you later, bye. You no longer have a career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's got to be smart. You know what? You have to research it. You got to look at all the ins and outs, and you have to make the best decision. For yourself, for your family, for your department that's paying your salary. You got to make the best decision on that type of thing.
Yeah, it's been interesting, but I see a lot of changes in the fire service, and I'm not talking about what you do on the Fireground, but how they're managed or run, or all of that is changing so fast because of money, because people aren't volunteering anymore like they did in the 60s, 70s. People, they don't want to do it. And I just taught in a little town south here, and I have to give them kudos. North Madison, in just south of me here. It's here in Connecticut. I did a class there, and there was like 30 people, 30 volunteers came to my class. And like, in a small volunteer community, they have that many members. And I was pretty excited to see that, and it ran the gamut from people as old as me to a couple of 18-year-old kids. And I think that's exciting. Yeah, it's a big wide spot. I told them I got T-shirts older than those guys, and fire department T-shirts older than those guys.
The underwear you're wearing is probably older than them.
No, I'm going commando.
Oh no,
I am not, but I thought that would be funny. But it's amazing. And some places can't get volunteers at all. They can't get volunteer Little League coaches. I look at Frank Viscuso. I love what he does with his kids. I think that's wonderful. Yeah. But, when I was a kid, when my dad was a coach, they almost had a fight who would get the jobs in the teams. There were so many fathers who wanted to be. Yeah. Now they're begging for them to come and help.
Yeah, when I was a kid, we were fortunate to have some unbelievably great coaches, and there were a ton of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure how it is now. I mean, I volunteered to coach when but I have girls, and they were playing soccer, and I don't know soccer. I did volunteer to coach softball, and I'll tell you what, it's like, I've coached kids that went to the NFL when I coached in high school. You stand in front of a building, people jumping out of it, like. I was more petrified of coaching 5-year-old girls in softball than I was of anything else I've ever done. It was so out of my comfort zone. Then I wound up coaching soccer, and I can't show them what to do. I was a football guy. I don't know the first thing about soccer. I believe, if God wanted you to play soccer, He wouldn't have given you hands, but I'm just, but yeah, listen, the volunteerism I think it's a function of society, because people have to work more, and that everything has gone up. People have to work more to make ends meet. Kids have to work too in some instances, and they don't get that chance to either, give back as a volunteer. Because I coached when I was younger, and I coached high school football when I was younger, and so you gave back, but kids today, it's a little more difficult because they have more demands on them, so they have to work, and they have to work longer hours or more jobs.
Yep. Yep. And this is stealing some of their time too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a great tool, but it can't be all you do. A little commercial. My sister wrote a book a while ago called Don't Press Send. It's about a mindful use of social media, how to treat people right, how to, don't spend all your time on it. She just wrote another book for little kids, like toddlers. It's called Bye Bye Wi-Fi. So,
wow.
Bye Bye Wi. It's a picture book. It's a read with your 3-year-old kid book. Basically, what it talks about, this Fox family lost their internet, their Wi-Fi, and they were all I'm going to have a bad day. And then it turned out they went out and played games and horseshoes and hide and seek and had that, they're having fun because they had no Wi-Fi, things that they don't do
Mm.
anymore. And, it's only 20 pages. It's aimed at, you see,
Yeah, but it's got a great message.
it does because there's so much fun outside your door, and it was just published. It's actually sold out at Amazon and Barnes and Noble, both sold out. So I guess there's a need for it, So yeah, you know what?
Very good.
This is so useful to me. The GPS information, like you talked about. You sent me the videos from that fire we were talking about. Or I hear there's a fire, or building collapse in the Bronx, and I Googled, see what's going on. And I found on the news was Glenn Corbett talking about building collapse and the facades and whether it's a load bearing wall. And you listen to the news people trying to tell him what's going on. And you go, no, this was not. This is what's holding the building up. And I watched Glenn try to dance, but they kept interrupting him when he was trying to explain. But Glenn is brilliant. He's
Glenn's the best. He's the best. He's a treasure.
He really is. And I know what he's trying to say. And I'm watching the news people say, "Oh, what you're saying is," and I'm going, "No, that's not what he's saying."
That's not what I'm saying. Listen. Is this? I'll tell you what I'm saying. Don't tell me what I'm saying. I'll tell you what I'm saying.
Oh yes.
Right? Well, listen, they don't know who he is.
No.
So they're used to interrupting because they like to hear themselves talk.
Yes. But they also have their opinion before they ask you a question. I was the PIO for Wallingford for a while when I was captain there, and the news media would come in and say, "So what you're saying is," you go, "No, listen to what I'm saying," and you would say, "So you're saying this fire was probably arson." No, I'm saying it's under investigation. They have not found the cause yet, so it might be arson. No, that's not. Do not.
That's right.
And they want the conflict. They want you to say something. This
they can get, and years ago, news people didn't have opinions; they just reported on the news.
Walter Cronkite.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you one story about this. So we had a fire. It was a big Victorian, 3-story balloon frame house. I mean, it was a hoarder house, so it was really a nightmare. So on arrival, I said, we got a good fire. Now it's a side street, a connecting street, and it's got like 2-inch mains that were put in 100 years ago. So there's a hydrant right in front of the house. So I tell the water supply engine to go to Main Street or to Elm Street. I don't remember which one it was, but it's got a 14-inch main running down the street that's probably 10 years old. So all of a sudden the press is there. The neighbors are complaining that the hydrant in front of the house is broken. And I go, this is when we were cleaning up. So they're interviewing me. There's nothing wrong with the hydrant in front of the house. Well, how come you didn't? And, they start, and the councilman actually lived on that block, one of the city councilmen. So he came over and says, yeah, what's this? I go, Scott, who's the pump operator? I go, do me a favor. Take the cap off this hydrant and open it and show them that it works fine. So the press is like, well, why didn't you use it? So I said, let me explain. And it had to be really, really slow and careful. This is a tiny little main. On arrival, I said, this looks bad. We might have to go defensive before we're done, which requires a lot of water. So the big main is, I'm going to say, 750 feet away. Or I got this little main right in front of the fire. And so we're ensuring that we get this fire out. And, again, I don't think they were happy with my answer. They kind of said, oh, yeah, okay. And they walked away and they never even talked about the hydrant on the news later.
Of course not, because you didn't, they couldn't catch you doing something, that they could say that you don't know your job.
Right. But I have to tell you, I scored some big points with the chief that day. He goes, I can't believe you knew that. I go, this is what you pay me to do. I better know that.
You better know that. Exactly. Yeah. You're a chief. You don't know your water supply.
He understood it, but he was surprised that I saw that early in the incident. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It just made so much sense.
Well, listen, you were the tip of the spear. You were the sharpest guy in the block. Thank God.
And you know what? Here brings me to a whole nother hoarder houses. The truck company spent their whole first 10 minutes just clearing stuff off the stairs so we could get a hose line up. Our initial attack lines up to the third floor were up a 35-foot ladder. That was the only way to get up there because there was just so much stuff, boxes of stuff, brand new stuff never opened. The front door you couldn't get into at all. We had to go to the C side. Do you use 1, 2, 3, 4 or A, B, C, D?
A, B, C, D.
Yeah, us too. I have a hard time when I'm in the Northeast because it depends on who you're talking to. When they say, "Oh, you mean the 3 side?" Yeah, the 3 side.
Yeah. New York uses that, and they probably do. They use that in Long
Island? They use both. It kind of flips back and forth. It's really officially A, B, C, D, but it's just natural and normal because before there was an official incident command system, they were using 1, 2, 3, 4. They really were way back, but it drifted in from New York City.
So here's a question: if they use sides 1, 2, 3, 4, are the exposure 3, 3, or is it exposure B and D?
Officially, floors are 1, 2, 3, 4, but exposures continue with the ABC. But it begins with exposure.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Exposure A. No, it won't be exposure A because that would be the street. Exposure B or exposure C or D. So they would say exposure as part of the description.
Yeah. So the sides of the building are numerical, but the exposures are alphabetical.
Oh.
Right?
No, I thought you're talking about Long Island, the city.
Well, what about the city?
I don't. You know what? I don't know. I think they say exposure number.
Exposure 2, exposure 4, right?
But
where we would say B and D.
But what about the third exposure? Row with taxpayers, storefronts. How do you say your exposure?
Yeah. So would that be? Well, we would be, B1, B2, B3. Yep. Would they be, 2A, 2B? Would it be the opposite? Yeah. I wonder. My
description, not official, but I would say it's the pharmacy. Go in the pharmacy. The third, or I would say the third store down. I honestly, I don't think in my department we had an official way to, on paper, when we were learning, we used all those designations. Exposure 1A, but in real life, English. The restaurant.
That's why I said they dragged that captain to the D1 roof because he was down on the D exposure roof. So it was D1 where they took him.
Yeah.
So to me that's just comes right off the tongue. But if they do it out, what if they do it opposite? So I don't know. 2D. Yeah.
You know what?
Like exposure 2D before building's over.
I'm gonna call somebody as soon as we're finished with this.
Yeah, we got
works down.
We'll come back next month and we'll discuss this.
Yeah. Okay.
Or the next 2 months, or whatever we.
I think we're about 6 weeks out. Although they haven't been done yet.
No, they haven't. We usually about 6 weeks. Every 6 weeks we go 6, 7 weeks.
Yep. So it's pretty interesting how again we're changing so much, and our Fireground operations are still the same. Get in, fire attack, get water on the fire, ventilate, and coordinate ventilation, and search. I mean, that hasn't changed in 200 years. Maybe more. I don't know. But how we're organizing how we do what we do is becoming more complicated. Some of it, I think, is more so. But that's pretty much it. I think we've beat a dead horse to death again.
Yeah, you did. Listen,
I want.
we always have fun.
Yes, and hopefully, I know Brian's not going to get here, but maybe Brian can record something and send it to Mark, and Mark can edit it in. It may not look the same, but they can. Maybe they can just put him in. I don't know all the how fire engineering feels about commercials, but I think it's what he's doing. It'll be just fine. Brian's a great guy, and his boss is a great guy. I love those guys. I'm going to see him in February. I'm probably doing my last winter fire school in Missouri. I'm not flying in February anymore. Maybe I'll do one more in Nebraska because I love those guys. I like the guys in Missouri too. But anyway,
I'll be in Orlando.
Is that still going on? It is? Okay. I heard one of them in Florida was collapsing.
Yeah, well, one of them was canceled.
Okay.
I was doing that one. That's why I wasn't doing either Missouri or Nebraska.
Okay.
And it was canceled.
Okay. But anyway, I'm going to cut this short. We all got a lot of things to do. And tell your daughters I said Merry Christmas. That's
you too. Same to you, Maureen, and your family.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. It's going to be an interesting, busy one. But stay safe, and to the firefighters out there, be careful. The ice season is coming. Watch out for the roads when you're driving. Watch out for the runoff from the engines in front of the fire building. A lot of injuries hurt this time of year. Also, your muscles are stiff and cold, so please be careful. Love you all, and thanks for tuning in.
Hang on. Shameless plug. And you're talking about cold weather firefighting. My article coming out in January is called The Strategic Considerations of Cold Weather Firefighting. So I got an article in January. I have my 4th edition, which has been submitted. Hopefully it will be out during 2024 at some time. And just one last thing I wanted to say about the North Hudson thing. And this is a cliche, but it really, there are no routine fires, man. They just aren't. That fire they thought was going to be, we got the lines in place, was not a problem, and all of a sudden everything went sideways. You never know, as Bobby Halton used to say, you never know when the joke is going to pop out of the deck, and you have to always be vigilant in that respect. Wear your gear, protect yourself, always continue to size up, make sure you have 2 ways out of every area. Like, these are things that, lessons that were learned and reinforced at this incident, because the Joker did pop out of the deck. So, with that said, I'm wishing everybody Merry Christmas and a safe and healthy New Year.
Yeah, I have to add one thing. Sadly, tomorrow, Bobby Halton will be gone 1 year. And so, he helped me so much, gave me so much guidance in delivering classes and how to reach people. I quote him in all my classes. He's always said, it's not what you don't know that'll get you in trouble. It's not what you know that'll get you in trouble. It's what you think you know that you don't know that will get you in trouble. And I love that quote. But there's so many, from Bobby. But Bobby, none of us would be here if it wasn't for Bobby and his predecessors, and obviously for David filling in and taking us forward, and Diane. So thank you all, and Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and
all you guys,
and whatever else you celebrate. Peter, thank you for helping us here today, and
thanks, Mark.
Enjoy your days today, folks. Stay safe. Till next time.
The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision the Firestore makes as a company is about its customers. As the holiday season has quickly approached, explore a wide selection of unique and practical gifts at the Firestore's Gift Center. Find the perfect presents for firefighters, EMTs, and first responders today. The Firestore's goal is to get you the gear you need when you need it at prices you can afford. Visit thefirestore.com for everything but the truck and shop its family of brands including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagneGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit MagneGrip.com.